Anthony was also called a physician of Egypt and a gift from God to Egypt. And Pope Shenouda also said the father of monks was a radiant lamp because he tried to reach the wilderness easily. So his name became like star of wilderness, and his radiant life made his teaching shining like the star of the desert. That's why we call the disciples of Saint Anthony the stars of the desert, because he was the first star that came and established monasticism. Also, a lot of people might also talk and say that maybe that monasticism is, what is it called? Monasticism is fleeing from the world, صح? And I wanted to give the talk today about fleeing and facing. There's two differences between fleeing and facing. And Aslan, there was Pope Shenouda said, monasticism is not escape from the world, but a life elevated above the level of this world. It's and Aslan, a bunch of other books, they say that monasticism is the 8th sacrament, because how holy it is to be in monasticism. I was gonna go and okay, the next one. I wanted to كده شوية contemplate on the things or the teachings of Jesus that Saint Anthony carried on his life with. And Saint Anthony, first of all, he carried his life with many struggles and spiritual warfares. And then he listened to the word of Christ throughout his journey. And he entered into a life that has no purpose, or it has no meaning, entering into something being the first of it. That's why scientists, when they enter into something new, or people that are new to stuff that they do, when they enter it to be the first, that's why they call them the great, or their name is shown. And if he goes to heaven, a lot of people, and he goes and says to Jesus, "Bitada, here is all of my work I have done." The guy دلوقتي all of his work is not done, because he influences others and millions of people to come behind him through heaven. But imagine how he would walk Aslan in heaven, and a bunch of people that are following his footsteps until now. Some of the stuff that Amba Antonius was talking about, or this verses that he carried on in his life, is this: if anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. Amba Antonius also talks about denying himself, as he also mentions every time in that we have to go and search our depth. And he also says, Bitada, one of the quotes is, before every sunset, contemplate on what you have done on the day, and see who you made sad, who you made happy that day, and assess yourself. That's how to deny yourself. And my kingdom is not of this world. Also, he carried on his life, because monasticism was a new way, an angelic life, a new way for people to transform the earth into into a heavenly world, something that hasn't been done قبل كده. We go in the church sometimes thinking that it's maybe worldly, and then it's transformed in the liturgy بقى, and we see the body of Christ وكل ده. But Saint Anthony lived all of that in his life. Imagine how holy, how beautiful this life is. And then second, the third thing, the verse that I would like to comment on, is him saying on the Bible, طبعا, watch and pray lest you enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is weak, but the flesh is weak. And Saint Anthony uses weak a lot of times, and he assesses his own self, even though he's a very holy person. And we could see this when Satan and the demons kept hitting Anthony a lot, or showing him a lot of warfares. He would say, "I'm weaker than your weakest." For those denying yourself and understanding that you're weak, maybe it's not easy, but in Saint Anthony's life was very important. That's why I wanted to talk about 4 stages in Saint Anthony's life, and all of them, he fled from them and he faced them. So he fled from the world and faced it. He fled against fame and noise and he faced it. And he fled from the devil and lust and he faced it. And he also fled from his own one's own weakness. Okay, I wanted to talk about the angelic life and transforming into him going to the desert. Saint Anthony, as you guys see, he was a normal guy like us, but see, he had a different intent, and he had a lot of discipline in his heart. That's why he followed Jesus with all of the stuff. He didn't, maybe احنا ساعات بنسمع الإنجيل and we also think about it, but we don't do what the gospel says, or we do it for a short time. But see, he was looking for the long term, what stays with him for a long time. That's what he says when he saw the body of his dad dead on the casket. He said, hey, if this body is dissolved today, tomorrow I shall die as well. Few people choose to die willingly on earth. Everyone, ala tool, they die unwillingly on earth. That's why a lot of people, they don't see joy, or they always have fear of what's coming. And Saint Anthony was dead of this world before he lived it. We could see, command, that he left a lot of things that Jesus talks about. I know there's a verse, if one leaves his mom or mother or dad, right? There's that verse. You could guys see it. I think it's in Matthew, right? He left his sister after all, and then imagine leaving your own family. His sister was without a family, without parents, and he left his own money and sold it to the poor. He left his youth and power that he had in his village. I think in Saint Anthony, if he lived even in his village, he would have been a president. Wallah, he would have had something, a big role in his world or the city that he was in. And then he left worldly passions that all of us might seek. And he also fled to the wilderness to learn under monks that were beside the city, in the outer of the city. But it wasn't outer, it can beside the city. And then أحلى حاجة of Saint Anthony that we could all take from him is that wherever we go, we learn something from a person. هو كان بيروح لناس maybe they're hard-tempered or very, very يعني angry, maybe they're silent too much, or they don't help a lot. But he learned something from each one that he sat with. He learned شوية silence. He learned being wise. He learned being kind. He learned all of the fruits of the spirits from them, and he grew it more. Second, one of the other stage that he had is when he went to the Greek cemetery. So after going in the wilderness, he didn't see what he wanted. He wanted to establish a new way. عشان كل ده ما فيهوش discipline. There's no discipline in all of that. So he fled to a Greek cemetery, and he faced a lot of warfares from the devil. There's a story even that the devil dragged him out of the cell. They dragged him out of the cell, and they hit him hard as hard as they could. And then Hatta Saint Anthony, when he came out, he said, I can't even understand if this is the devil hitting me, because no human person, no humankind could hit that hard, because how the spirit is very, very tough. وبعدين that day when he was unconscious, because of the devil. The person that was serving him, he took him back to the village and he put him in the church. And the entire people prayed on him and thinking that he was dead. He woke up that day and he told his servant, take me back to the Greek cemetery. And then he took back the Psalms and prayed all night. This is a spirit فعلا dead from inside. It's not scared of devils or people around it. It's a spirit that is waiting for death. And then he fled to the Nile River, and to the Nile, I mean that he was beside the Nile. He was living at the edge of the Nile River. So he was included and excluded from every single person. And he lived 7 years. So the story of Saint Anthony is a lot of stages going up to the spirituality that he has seen and experienced. And then second thing that he tried to flee from is the noise and fame. And we could see that in the contemplation by Pope Shenouda of his life and on the book. And Saint Anthony, it was said by Saint Athanasius that he said, I will flee from fame to preserve my heart. And he also was called a physician to Egypt. And even there was another story of him comforting other people by just seeing him. So there was 3 monks that came one time, and they all sat down, and everyone, 2 of them, kept asking questions. And before they left, Saint Anthony asked the one that didn't ask a question, why didn't you ask a question? قال له, because يكفيني النظر إلى وجهك. Your face comforts me from the bottom of my heart. I don't need anything. I don't need to ask a question, because I see God through you. Saint Anthony left all of the noise and fame to live an angelic life. And then he went to the inner desert to learn the monastic rites, and we know that learning the monastic rites was from him seeing angels, and the angels had the monastic rites by having the clothes on, the alaswa, and having the khus, or the palm leaves, to weave it. And then he fled from noise to search for inner peace and for God. Also, he also was experiencing too much noise around him, because there was a lot of stories that came up that explained that Saint Anthony ما كانش بيحب النويز, and he didn't want fame. And he also wanted to flee from Luxor, because he fled from Luxor because there was a lot of people around him, and a lot of people going up to the mountain. Hatta it was said in one of the stories that there was a Greek Roman guy, and it was a soldier, and he demanded for Saint Anthony to go down, and he didn't want to go down. اللي حصل ان Saint Anthony wanted to go to the Luxor and يسيب كل ده. And when he was going to the boat, a voice came upon, and then the boat was filled with a lot of people, and he said, إلى أين تذهب يا أنطونيوس? Where are you going, Anthony? That's the spirit of God. ليه؟ عشان we don't know sometimes where God wants us to be, but every time we don't know where God is going to take us, we gotta say إلى أين تذهب يا أنطونيوس, and fill in the blank your name. إلى أين تذهب? Where are you going? After all of that, Anthony was very talentful and very healing. And there was another story. A girl from Libya and her parents came, and they took her to Saint Anthony to the mountain, and he healed the girl. And after, people were praising him. إزاي أنت بتعمل كده? How are you doing this? This is very powerful of him. So Anthony told them, Antonius or Anthony is a man like you, a human like you. But even though Saint Anthony was very high praised and very glorious, but he was very humble and had humility in his heart. It didn't change. Also, there was another story where he was going to the canal علشان يشوف the other monks, and there was crocodiles in that canal, and if he goes through, something is going to happen to him. So he prayed and had the cross over it, and then he went through, and there was no crocodiles that harmed him. And yeah, that was because he wanted to comfort his children, and he always had a spirit of comfort. Thank you.